here. Ross joins us now on the West Her Hotline, fresh off of watching 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. I mean, what do you want to say here? Compete like crazy, easily. What was it like watching him play quarterback in person last night?
It was awesome. Great to talk with you guys. I'm a big fan of Nate and have been for a long time, so it's cool that Nate's on today. And, I just keep thinking, listening and watching Rivers last night, and I say listening intently because you could hear all the audibles and checks he was making. I don't know if you guys saw the NFL Films had Aaron Rodgers mic'd up for their game against the Lions, and there's some really good audio out there of Aaron telling Kenny Gainwell what to do before the snap. It turns into a touchdown. I think there's a lot of lessons there. I mean, I don't know that the lesson is that a lot of quarterbacks can play into their 40s, but I think just maybe in general in life, the importance of wisdom, the importance of experience, the importance of intelligence, and I think it really should be a great coaching point, life lesson, teaching concept for younger quarterbacks. Like, watch these guys operate. You always use the expression coach on a field. I think Rivers has been a head high school football coach for like 4 years now. He literally is a coach on the field when he's out there, and he plays like it. I mean, he never had the greatest arm, but he does not have a whole lot left in that thing, and yet he's still finding a way to move the ball up and down the field. That was so impressive to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and he sounded after the game really conflicted about it because you can tell somewhere, like, however much doubt he maybe even had about whether he could pull this off competently. I think he's at least done that, if not way more than that. And he's saying how he's having this great time, but they're 0-2, right? Like, he was brought in to try to save their playoff season here, and so far he's 0-2. That's got to be a tough spot to be in at 44, retired for 5 years, rolling in and proving, I think, largely you can still do the job, but not getting the result you were brought there for.
Yeah, and, they brought him in to give them a chance to win these games, and he's absolutely done that. I mean, they kicked a go-ahead field goal in Seattle with less than a minute remaining. Defense wasn't able to get a stop. And then last night, their defense couldn't get a single stop as the Niners didn't even punt it one time the entire game. So he hasn't been perfect, but in my mind, he's absolutely done his job, which is to give the Colts a legitimate chance to beat these good teams.
Yeah, I think there's no arguing that. The defense yesterday, really let them down. I mean, there was a pick six mixed in there still, but whatever. They were down 14, I think, at the time that ended up happening. So, Ross, moving off of Rivers and your experience there, I won't ask about the ice cream sandwich station because I think it would gobble up the entirety of the rest of the segment. So we'll just blow past that, although we love the tuck spread Twitter action always. How much, if anything, did you make of the Bills is struggling what I want? I mean, I never felt like they were in danger of losing to the Browns, but it was a 3-point game for a lot of the fourth quarter, which, means you're one play away, but I never felt that threatened, but it was a kind of a weird game that way.
It was, and it's funny because I never know. Like, I go on in Houston on Tuesday mornings, and they asked a similar question about the Texans barely beating the Raiders, and is it just a 1-week blip? Is it, in between some other big games, or is it symptomatic of something more? And the best answer I have is, talk to me Sunday.
Right.
I'll know a lot more after we see the Bills go against the Eagles. I'll know a lot more about whether there's anything to be concerned about coming out of that Cleveland game, or if it was just one of those games where maybe the Bills didn't have everything. Josh was banged up, didn't play their best game. The Browns did some positive things, but the Bills still took care of business, showed they could run it when they had to. For the most part, they won the game. and did what they needed to do. And so I think that's probably the case. But certainly I'm curious to see what this matchup against Philly's like, because the Eagles, they definitely have a chance at the 2 seed. I think there's a healthy discussion to be had about whether the difference between the 3 seed and the 2 seed is enough to play all your starters, take the injury risk, take the wear and tear. I expect the Eagles to go all out against the Bills. Sounds like they might get Lane Johnson, their best offensive lineman, and Jalen Carter, their best defensive lineman, back for this game. I think the Eagles really need kind of a big win going into the playoffs. I think going up to Buffalo, and if they could win that one, that would really kind of get the vibe back, the momentum back for a team that still clearly has the roster capable of going on a playoff run to the Super Bowl.
Ross, first of all, great to talk to you again, buddy. Hope all is well. I wanted to ask you, we talked with Eric Wood yesterday, and we talked a little bit about, maybe needing to see this Bills offense and needing to see these boundary receivers just do something that might give them the confidence that, like, if they need to rely on their boundary guys, that it can be done in the playoffs. He said something that stuck with me till today, which was like, maybe they're thinking they don't need the boundary receivers and like that they're just going to kind of roll with this offense that is really predicated, at least their pass game, with their running backs and tight ends. And I'm wondering if you think that this team, the way that it's currently built, knowing the issues on defense, that if they are going to try to go into this playoff with their passing attack really flowing through running backs and tight ends, that you think with the AFC the way that it is, that they'll be able to be successful doing that and finally sort of break through here?
Well, I certainly think they can, but saying they can and they will are two different things. They put themselves, I thought, in a bad spot. This would have been a perfect year, as I talked about with Mike and Bulldog going back to August or whatever. A perfect year to get the number 1 seed. That seems very unlikely at this point. And so right now it seems like they're going to have to win 3 road playoff games. And I don't care how good you are, I don't care how good your quarterback is. That doesn't happen very often. You guys probably know more than me the last time a team did it, but it doesn't seem like it's that common to win 3 on the road. You are certainly increasing your degree of difficulty. I do think, Nate, to your point, that's probably the best way for the Bills to go about this. The more they run, the more they possess the ball, the more they keep their defense on the sideline. I think that's a good thing. I don't think they're an overly deep team with the injuries they've suffered along the D-line. So I think you want to try to possess it as much as you can. Part of that goes along with throwing the ball to running backs and tight ends as opposed to driving it down the field. And if you think about some of their matchups, like I wouldn't try to throw it to their outside receivers against Quinyon Mitchell for the Eagles. I can tell you that much right now. Maybe a Dory Jackson on the other side. But this is a tough one, too, because if you're looking to work the tight ends or Shakir, the Eagles probably have, maybe the best nickelback in the NFL now in Cooper DeJean. I know Taron Johnson's had a great run, but Cooper just made the Pro Bowl, and deservingly so. He's been fantastic.
Odyssey NFL Insider Ross Tucker on the Wester Hotline with us. Insider calls are brought to you by Nationwide. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side. You mentioned the thing about 3 road games, and that certainly is something that's on the horizon for the Bills if they end up being a wild card. But Ross, Nate and I were talking earlier today. I want the Bills to lean into trying to get the 5, because I feel like with the lack of Kansas City and a Baltimore and even Buffalo up top, like where they've been for the last 5 years in the 1 or the 2 or the 3 seed, the likelihood of a wild card team that ends up with 12 wins going on the road and beating a New England is not crazy. And so if I get the 5 seed and say the Chargers and the Texans are behind me in 6 and 7 and they pull upsets, guess who's not ever going anywhere? the 5 seed. Like I'm as long as I win, and I don't think that's as far-fetched as it normally would be, because you've got, I think, a playoff field that looks maybe ripe for upsets.
Yeah, I think there's probably some truth to that. I mean, I still think, it's going to be an uphill battle for the 6 and 7 teams to go ahead and win, wherever they have to go, to New England or to Jacksonville or maybe to Denver. They're going to be underdogs, I would think. But they can definitely pull it off. I don't think they both would, but they could. But, yeah, there's definitely some logic there that at least getting the 5. I mean, interestingly, the Steelers are kind of playing their best football right now.
Yeah, I know.
I still think you'd rather play them probably than the other teams that are ahead of them. I do think even if AFC East gets out of reach, it makes a lot of sense to try to be the 5 seed for the reason you mentioned.
Ross, I know that Bulldog can't seemingly take Jacksonville serious because of the teal color in their jerseys, but we had our reverse power rankings today and had them number 1. And I think we've all sort of started to really believe that this Jacksonville Jaguars team could really be the class of the AFC, the way that, Liam Cohen has Trevor Lawrence playing right now, something like, it was like 10 touchdowns in his last 6 quarters. Like, it has just been a really strong run. They look like one of the more complete teams, if not the most complete team in the AFC. And I know you've had a chance to see them in person. What are your thoughts about this Jacksonville team and their potential to maybe make a deep run this year in this playoff field that does not have the big quarterbacks, as we've mentioned many times?
Yeah, right now I would say they're the best team, or at least playing the best. They've won 6 in a row, 5 of those by double digits, and in 4 of them, Trevor Lawrence didn't even have to finish the game. I mean, in 4 of them, Nick Mullins was out there to finish the game. And that, you guys see it. That does not happen very often in the NFL at all. That is super impressive. If you're getting to garbage time 4 times out of a 5-game stretch, they didn't quite get there at Denver, but they went out to the number 1 seed and won by 2 touchdowns. They have a bunch of guys, including a couple of Penn State guys, Parker Washington, Brenton Strange, that are really good players. They're young. They're kind of under the radar. They're not household names, but there's a chance they will be by the end of January.
Yeah, that team, we talked about their uniforms last week, you and I together, Ross. But, yeah, we got an eyeful of them. They were in the local 4 o'clock window here in Buffalo. And, I mentioned yesterday, maybe a lot of Bills fans maybe sat with them for the first time all year, really, if you're not finding them on NFL Sunday Ticket, whatever. Like, here's, we're winding into playoff time, and here's a couple of teams that are ahead of the Bills. Let's get some eyes on them. And, yeah, they were super impressive, Jacksonville. What do you think of Denver off of that performance?
I kind of feel about Denver like I have all year. I think they're a good team, certainly, but, they're one of those teams that it's been a little bit too much of the clutch play late. I put them in the Bears category in that regard, where it feels like they've won more than their fair share of those 1-score games late when they're behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a believer that, a really good quarterback head coach combo can help you win more than 50% of them, let's say. But it's like when the Chiefs won 15 in a row. I don't care how good Mahomes and Andy Reid are. You're not that good. You're not beating the odds that good. And it kind of, they had major regression in that statistic, in that category this year. Now, maybe the Bears and the Broncos continue to have these magical runs with these late-game wins, but it just doesn't feel like that's sustainable. It feels like that's going to dry up, when you're trying to win 3 games in a row against really good teams.
You mentioned, and we kind of blew past it here. I mean, the Eagles are obviously in here. I want to close with your thoughts on them and their season so far. You did mention that you feel like they could really use a signature win here late in the season, and this would certainly qualify for them. It seems like almost week in, week out, there's always something with the Eagles. Do you think that they will pull it all together? Because the talent is undeniable on both sides of the ball. I mean, I look at their roster. I mean, 3 weeks ago I would have said there's the best team. I know they don't have the best record, but that's the best team. Do you think that they will pull together and be a threat come playoff time?
Yeah, I do. The concern would be if the offense just peters out in one of these games, because they've had some bad stretches like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the defense is lights out right now. I mean, lights out. And they've really changed some things up schematically the last 3 games. And as a result, man, they are moving the ball much, much better. Guys are open. Hurts is getting the ball out on time. They're running it better. We'll find out Sunday, because that'll be the best team they've played in a while, but they certainly look like they're heading towards peaking at the right time.
Right. What's the holiday week like for you? You got games to go do, or do you get to kind of lay low with the girls?
Well, because there's so many Thursday games and Saturday games, I do not have a TV game this week for CBS. I think CBS might only have 4 games because of Netflix on Christmas and Amazon and whatever. Fortunately, I'm only 2 hours from the Commander Stadium. So I'll do all of the, Santa festivities. First of all, tomorrow, heading down to my sister's, ironically in the D.C. area. So I'll be able to be with my sister and brother-in-law and their kids and my mom. So I'll get all my family time in tomorrow after I record a couple Ross Tucker podcasts in the morning and do all that stuff. And then Thursday we'll do all the Santa stuff, just myself, my wife, and my 2 girls. And then I'll drive down to Washington, and I'll do the Commanders and the Cowboys for radio for Western One. If people are driving around in Buffalo, driving around for Christmas, I guess I'm one of the world's foremost expert on playing in meaningless Cowboys, Commanders, Washington games on the holidays. I did start 1 or 2 of those in my life. So we'll go down there. It's a rivalry game, call a game. I have a tough time turning it down. I know how hard it is to get these opportunities. As my wife says, if you say no, they might not keep asking you. So I'll zip down at 9 a.m., get there at 11, do the game, probably be back home by 6.
Well, I can tell you, I thoroughly enjoy whenever I'm, driving home from work or whatever, and you're doing these games, Ross. It's usually a must listen for me. So we appreciate you saying yes all the time.
You know what, Nate? That means more than you know, especially when I'm driving to Washington and back by myself on Christmas Day. It's nice to hear, people that I respect, like you, kind of give me those props. I really appreciate it. It means a lot.
All right, Ross. With that, we will part for the week and look forward to checking in with you again next week, man.
Yeah, man. Huge game Sunday. Can't wait to talk about it with you guys next week.
All right, looking forward to it, bud. Merry Christmas to you and the
Merry
family,
Christmas,
and we'll hook up before New Year's.
Western New York. Love you guys. See ya.
All right, there you go. That is Odyssey